So this whole be American, buy American, I understand, but learn what that really means. Learn what that really means, because it's not a Ford that's assembled with Chinese parts in Mexico. This is actually about putting America first, regardless of the origin of company, and making us an actual manufacturing hub. Let's move on to the tariffs. This is what everyone is talking about. Full disclosure, I'm not a fan of the UAW and how they have played the largest role in destroying the American auto industry. So my first reaction was, looking at these tariffs on auto imports and seeing that the UAW is supportive of this, I'm going, that is probably going to be bad for American consumers. Yeah. But then I thought about it, and I did a little more, not a little more digging, but kind of did a refresher course on the tariffs that we see in other countries. And I actually think that this policy, if implemented correctly, could favor you, the consumer, and by the way, makers of cars, and not just the union, and certainly not just the big three.
Yeah.
If you actually get into the rules, you realize this is designed to specifically kind of cut China, Mexico off at the knees, who are often one and the same, and to empower even Japanese car manufacturers, Korean or American car manufacturers who try and bring some jobs here onshore rather than simply seeing you as a consumer market. So it could be a pretty good thing, but we'll give you the information. First off, let him set it up. 25% new tariff on all auto imports into the United States. Donald Trump announced it yesterday.
What we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff. We start off with a 2.5% base, which is what we were at, and we go to 25%. And basically, as you know, and as you've been seeing, not reporting as accurately as it should be reported because it's a massive story. Business is coming back to the United States so that they don't have to pay tariffs. And I think also because of November 5th, the election, they're very happy. So we'll effectively be charging a 25% tariff. But if you build your car in the United States, there is no tariff. And what that means is a lot of foreign car companies, a lot of companies are going to be in great shape because they've already built their plant. But their plants are underutilized, so they'll be able to expand them inexpensively and quickly.
And you all know he has been on a tear lately as it relates to tariffs, which earned him the nickname, the Terrifier. And honestly, I think it works.
Oh, creepy.
Yikes. It does. What he just said there. How do Democrats expect? They have been championing the cause of the middle class and bringing back manufacturing jobs to the United States. Why do you think they left? Do you think you can just turn this back on and make a product that's more expensive and inferior and people will buy it and that industry will thrive and all of a sudden the middle class will be booming again like you think it needs to be because of manufacturing jobs? Do you think that's going to happen without any kind of incentive for manufacturing jobs to come back to the United States?
Yeah. Yeah, the problem is now is capitalism, and again, I'm a free enterpriser, so I don't agree at all with Bernie and the socialist pricks out there. But the issue that we run into is now you have to compete with slave labor because of the internationalization
they should be
of
championing
markets.
this on the left. They should be like, you know what, this is going to cost a little bit, but at least you're not going to have slave labor doing this, and at least these are going to be American manufacturing jobs. We've been championing the cause of the middle class. This is what they say forever, and this would be a win for them.
And by the way, there hasn't been free trade.
No,
just to be clear. So let me go through a few key facts here that you made. Key fact number one. So you do have major trading partners, for example, like Korea, Japan, you're talking about Kia, Hyundai, right? And Honda, Toyota. They don't have tariffs, to be clear, on American cars coming in. That being said, they already have plants here in the United States. And like he said, they have the ability to ramp up capacity quite a bit. So they are allies. They won't be affected as negatively as people think, but we do need to be careful about that. I believe that this is aimed at two key bad actors, as it will. And we can kind of toss Canada in, but that's sort of an aside. So Mexico and China, let's start with them.
Yeah.
So the share of auto imports in the United States, what we import coming from Mexico, is about 22% of the market. So $49 billion approximately, I believe, I believe this is an annual basis. I don't know what we have there, if it's a specific spread. As far as China, here's the thing. We don't bring in a lot of cars from China, but there's a reason for that. We bring in a lot of Chinese parts. So only about 3.8 billion as far as auto manufacturers as a whole. But the parts, 15 billion, 9.5%. Here's the other thing. That number is really low because what China does goes back to Mexico. They export a lot of their parts to Mexico, where plants move from the United States to assemble them. So now you have an American car from, let's say, Ford, that is made from Chinese parts and assembled in Mexico.
Yes.
So it's very important for you to realize that the UAW and American-made is bullshit in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Just to be clear. As far as Canada too, it's important, but they don't make up a ton of imports, but about 28 billion, 12.9%. But here's the point. We're their biggest market, right? Far more cars are sold in the States than in Canada. So Lexus has a plant there, Toyota. Why wouldn't we want that in the States? Why should anything be given to Canada at that point? By the way, the cars that come out of Canada suck. I had a Toyota that was made in Canada, and the guy said, oh, wait, look at the VIN number. He said, yeah, you're really screwed. We've had problems with all of these circuit boards because it's made in Canada. You want to make sure you get the right VIN number. So why is the United States importing any cars assembled in Canada? In that case, the labor isn't even necessarily cheaper. That's just one of those things, a greasing of the palms, a favor for a favor. So yeah, let's bring that here to the United States. And certainly, you were about to say something.
Yeah, well, so the production of cars, obviously that matters a lot. We talked about China. They're circumventing this process. Just so you know, according to our good friends here at CNN, 50% of the parts used to make cars in America are foreign parts. 50%.
Yeah.
That's half of it. And you think most of that's coming from, Canada or Mexico, that they're producing those things? No, most likely those things are coming from China. And you do a couple assembly steps in Canada. You do a couple in Mexico. That's happened. We talked about that.
Right.
Then it gets in the United States. This is a major trade war that people probably didn't even know was going on. But car manufacturers did, for sure. They're taking advantage of it.
Yeah, they definitely are. And the UAW is taking advantage of it. In other words, the UAW...
Look, they're doing it right now on there. 50% foreign parts. It's exactly right.
Yeah, 50% foreign parts. Like 12 new plants were built in Mexico just since 2019. Hold on a second. How does that help American-made for a plant to go to Mexico and parts from China? And I get that you'll say the UAW has wanted to bring them back, but there's a reason that it's had to leave. And by the way, you look at these American plants for Hyundai, Kia, Toyota, they employ more than quote-unquote American cars. So here's something, too, to keep in mind, is that it's been very hard for the United States to export cars, for example, to Europe. And to China, it's non-existent. We'll get into why that's the case. And why that's so. Think about it. You don't think that an American car manufacturer would like to open up the second biggest market in the world in China and can make a very inexpensive car? Yeah. They're not allowed to do so unless they hand over all of their IP. Effectively, there's one exception, Tesla, which is weird. But let me go to Germany really fast.
We don't like it.
That's weird.
Share of U.S. auto imports from Germany, $25 billion, so 11%. And then Germany and the EU, they have a tariff on the United States, any of our cars, 10%. Let's go through some basic math here. This is the second point that I want to make. The unfair market practices that you have. So I just gave you the example for example. Germany, their tariff, 10%. Okay. So in the United States, you can get Mercedes, you can get BMW, you can get all these cars. And I think there's about a 2.5% tariff as baseline. Okay. You have a 10% one in Germany, but that's not all. Let me take an example. Let's say a $30,000 car from the United States is being exported to Germany. Okay. So you have $30,000, okay? You add $2,000 in shipping, we're now at $32,000. Let's add the EU card tariff, 10%, that gets us to $35,000, $35,200. Then there's a German VAT tax, it's about 19%. You get it to $41,000, plus a registration fee on top of that. This $30,000 car now costs over $42,000 in Germany. It makes it impossible to compete, so they bring their cars over here, and most American cars, they haven't been great. Some are good. But I guarantee you there are cars that Germans would like to have available, especially in that lower priced sector of the market. It's not something where the United States can compete honestly. And we see that across other countries. Let's take a more extreme example. China. With tariffs, don't look at how it just is. Look at how this really should be if it were fair. Right? Okay, it's true. We don't actually export cars to China. Yeah. But there's a reason for it. It's kind of like when we talked about the tariffs in Canada. They go, well, the 250% tariff on dairy. I mean, it doesn't matter because we don't sell any milk to Canada. Yes, because of the 250% tariff on dairy. Yeah. That's the point that you're not taking into account. So in China, take the same $30,000 US car, right? If we wanted to sell cars in China, and I'm sure that we would, you know what it becomes? It becomes $56,000 because you have a 15% tariff off the top. Which is funny because then you have another 10% retaliatory tariff. Do you guys know this? China has a 10% tariff, right? They already had a tariff. So Donald Trump said, hey, we're going to institute retaliatory tariffs. And they're like, oh, now we do another one, more retaliation. No. That's not how it works. You threw a punch. We threw one punch. Now you're throwing two punches.
What?
So you did 15. We mirrored it. And now they go, we're going to have another 10%. So you have a 15% initial tariff. Then you have up to a 40% consumption tax, a 13% VAT tax, and a 10% additional retaliatory tariff because we met their tariffs with an equal tariff. $30,000 car is now $56,000. Think about that for a second. Now, let's contrast that. Let's just take German, for example. For bringing it to the United States, you tell me this is fair. Car costs $30,000, $2,000 shipping, 2.5% tariff gets us to $32,800. You add some specific states, right? Sales tax might be 5%. Basically, a $30,000 car is $34,000 to $36,000. They can bring their stuff in here. We don't punish them. Americans get more choice, but Germans get less choice. Not to mention China, not to mention all these other countries in the EU. Think about, they literally have an entire global supply of consumers. We pretty much just have the United States. If you're a business, that's a big deal. We'd have to run this entire company differently if we were only allowed to be viewed in the United States. That's where these tariffs come in, and they're pretty important. This is actually a pretty effective strategy. Here's key fact number 3. I know I'm being a little nerdy today, but I'm from Detroit, and so this is something I was thinking about quite a bit. Honda, for example, they can build their Civics, and I think they will in Indiana instead of Mexico. Think about that. That's 210,000 cars per year now going to be built in the U.S. Hyundai, they're going to locate a new steel mill in Louisiana. Think about that, because now that allows us to have some raw materials, not Chinese parts. That's a $5.8 billion plant, 1,300 jobs. Toyota is going to be producing electric vehicle and hybrid batteries at a North Carolina plant. Honda is going to be buying those batteries from Toyota to avoid tariffs.
Hey, there you go.
Think about the plus side of this too. Now, I'm not saying that this won't increase costs, but you do have to look at both sides of this, and you have to start with how the world is. NAFTA sounds great. Free trade is great. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I was a libertarian. I think there are few people more brilliant than Thomas Sowell. I read Friedman growing up. I had a subscription to Reason magazine, and at a certain point, I said, oh, wait, there is no free trade, though. So we do have to live in the real world. And right now, it's completely unfair. This is a way of addressing it, by the way, that isn't just a kickback to the UAW.
Yes.
Because you can work for Honda or Toyota and be American. And actually, if anything, it might kind of kneecap them a little bit.
A little bit. So especially if you're putting these places in right-to-work states so that they can avoid the unions, which these foreign car companies are not going to go and build in Detroit and Cleveland and Chicago areas. It's like there's no reason to, right? So
you think the Japanese are going to understand? Wait, no. You do not get a 4 months off free LASIK dental. No.
No, it's absolutely not.
We have to be profitable.
They think it's going to increase the price of the average car. Again, this is kind of the fear-mongering, $3,500 to $12,000 per year. Okay, that was according to CNN. Again, I get a lot of these facts because that's what they're trying to tell people out there. Okay, fine. Congratulations to every car in America that's made here in America. You're now on sale. $3,500 to $12,000 cheaper than the cars coming from overseas. You're welcome. We just helped the American worker sell more cars.
Yeah.
And now, since there's more demand for your cars, you're going to produce more cars and ramp up production at the already existing facilities that can handle more production. You're welcome.
Well, here's the good news. The most American cars that are on the road right now, number one is Tesla.
Yeah.
80 to 87% as far as both manufacturing and parts. Ford Mustang is there. That's good as 80%.
There you go. It's not bad.
Then you've got the Honda Passport at 76%. So Tesla, Honda, these aren't necessarily UAW jobs. There can be more good-paying manufacturing jobs across this country, not just in Detroit. And here's the issue, too. There's nothing you can do federally about the UAW and their stranglehold on Detroit.
No.
They own the state. It's a problem. And if they have their way, American cars are just going to continually get more expensive and become crappier. This is a way to at least allow a possibility for the American consumer to have more choice if they want to employ Americans and not have to be beholden to the UAW, who, by the way, largely create cars with Chinese parts in Mexico anyway. So this whole be American, buy American, I understand, but learn what that really means. Learn what that really means, because it's not a Ford that's assembled with Chinese parts in Mexico. This is actually about putting America first, regardless of the origin of company, and making us an actual manufacturing hub. And also, by the way, more than just, the world has been seeing us as a pool of consumers, and that's it. Just, okay, we can use them as consumers, but we won't consume their product. Like, we're a country too. China, you have consumers, but you're also really, You guys are protectionists as far as your businesses, your industry, making sure your people have jobs. Same thing with Japan in a lot of ways, certainly with the EU. Okay, so but we're a country too. I know that you think the American worker can afford it and we can subsidize the whole world, but at a certain point, we're not just people who hand over our money. You do have to start playing fairly, and that's what and by the way, it's leverage, it's negotiation. I'm sure when people say, hey, we will move some plants over, Donald Trump will ease up on it. Except for China. Screw those guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, half of you, Bill.
It's okay. It's okay. I get it.
Good half.
But I like the Chinese rules. They're really good. My mom loves them.
No, they're not. They're not at all.
They're really good. I get 7 wontons for every car that's sold.
Nice.
So, I'm a hungry guy. It's down from 8. It's down from 8. So the tariffs are working.
They're working. But I don't understand why these things existed in the first place. We had a position of strength. Yeah. We negotiated from a position of strength, and we did it in the weakest possible way. Do not in any way, shape, or form protect our consumers, our workers, our economy, and just let them protect theirs. Now, I understand we want to sell stuff over there in different ways, but we have done this in every industry, it seems, where we have screwed the American worker over, and we never had to. That was the thing. We never had to do it.
Let me ask you this.
It's a loss of values.
What's
what matters, and are we paying the lowest price for something versus in the short-term benefit versus the long-term benefit of making sure that we have capacity. Right. I mean, we talk about cars, but I'll tell you, if you look at the pharmaceutical side, the number of drugs that come here or the key ingredients that only come from China or something like 80 or 90%. Right. If we want to talk about a trade war, all right, we can walk, but you're not going to get your blood pressure meds. You're not going to be able to get all these other important things if we don't do something about this now. So this is a beachhead about how these nations are going to relate to each other on an economic standing. And if we don't do something about it now, it will be too late. And it might already be.
Right. It might already be. And think about this in another world, right? Let's say Ford, GM, Dodge. What do you think would happen if they weren't facing 20, 30, 40% taxes and tariffs, for example, in China, or 15, 20% when you add it up in Europe? If they were able to sell that much more product from which they've been boxed out, you think that might reduce costs? You think that if they had a bigger market, a bigger buying pool, you think they might be able to make more cars, right? Because as capacity goes up, often costs can go down. Do you think that they could be a more profitable company? Do you think they could make cars that are cheaper, more effective for people who are in that lower end of the market? We don't really have a market, American cars, as far as Europe, as far as China. And China, by the way, is a big problem because if you look at EVs, guess what? They're all too happy to supply Europe with cheap EVs, provided they steal intellectual property from other companies, and Europe's happy to take it. But God, no, let's make sure that we punish the American cars coming in. This is a rigged game. It really is. And unfortunately, it is largely, they sit at the table, they go, okay, all right, let's just assume the United States, right? We don't need to do anything to help them because how can they help us? How can we use the United States to help us? Because they have the most buying power. They have the most people who are who consume these products. How can we use them to advance ourselves? And then how do we box them out? That's what you see with the EU. It's certainly what you see with China. And it's often what you see with Canada. It's not right. It's not fair. And I'm glad that people are waking up to it. Hey, if you like this video, you can hit the notification bell there to know when new videos come out, because I don't think subscriptions are still a thing on YouTube, but you know, you're an adult, most likely, so you can just choose one of the videos here to keep watching, and hopefully it's similar. I don't know what it is.